Okay, you're live now.
Okay, 12:16.
Okay, hello everyone. We will just wait 2 minutes for all participants to be able to join. Okay, maybe we can begin with the introduction of our speaker today. I will let Tim Fairhurst introduce himself. Sorry, Tim, we do not hear you.
Okay, it's very early on a Friday morning for me. Excuse me, Nicolas. Good morning, everybody, and thank you to our friends at EuroPass for this opportunity to join you in this excellent project. Also to our colleagues at the European Travel Commission for all their support. My name is Tim Fairhurst. I'm responsible for policy at the European Tourism Association. You'll be hearing a little bit more from me later.
Anna.
Hello everyone, I'm Anna Ndiaye and I'm the Key Account Manager for Germany at EuroPass, and today I'm really happy to share you some more insights about this European campaign for the Chinese FIT market.
Thank you, Anna. Thibault.
Oh, hello everyone, so I'm Thibault Lemierre and I work at EuroPass as Business Manager France, and I will handle also with this project with all the participants. Thank you.
And I am Nicolas, EuroPass Chief Operating Officer, and I am pleased to introduce this European Recovery Plan dedicated to the Chinese outbound tourism market. The first point to begin this webinar, we just want to remind you the milestone of this project and the application process. So at first, today we have this presentation webinar in partnership with ETOA and European Travel Commission, and the DMOs will have to apply before Friday, July the 10th at 12 a.m. The selected destination announcement will take place on Monday, July the 20th at 12 p.m. Now I will give the floor to Tim Fairhurst to introduce ETOA participation in this campaign.
Great, thank you, Nicolas. So for those of you who are not familiar with European Tourism Association or ETOA, we've been around since 1989, and looking at some of the people who signed up to this webinar this morning, some of you have been with us for quite a long part of that. We have about 1,200 members around the world. Most of those are in Europe. About 1/4 of them are buyers of tourism services throughout Europe, and some of those buyers are working very closely with the Chinese market. In terms of our breadth of activity, I'm primarily responsible for policy, but inside policy, we have destination engagement. So I think our view is, whilst the regulatory environment for tourism in Europe is extremely important, and we're working a lot on that in the context of recovery, there are also European level issues like visa policy, which are particularly relevant for the Chinese market, which we continue to work on now, and I think it's a big opportunity, and there's been big progress China outbound in making Europe a little bit more Chinese friendly, but still plenty of opportunity to do more. As an organization, we run a lot of commercial networking. We've got a big event next month called City Fair in London. except it's online. So this time people are going to be able to participate, whether they're sitting in North America or in Asia, and meet suppliers all through Europe. So we're really in the middle of a very big network of suppliers, DMOs, people selling to the travel trade throughout Europe. And we're here to provide some practical support and advice as to how to work well with the travel trade and generally capitalize on the opportunities that tourism brings. So the information you can see on the slide in front of you just gives you an idea of what we have done in the past in an EU context. We have worked with partners on the Europe-China Tourism Year in 2018. We've run workshops in China and in Europe, and we've been through a process not unlike what's happening now, where many people apply to get interested in a certain project, and there's a sort of selection process. So we're very familiar with this kind of activity. I'd like to just focus a bit more on the nature of this particular project, Wanderlust Wander Europe. We're really here to help be a bit of a coach behind the scenes. Now, I know that many of the people who are participating in this webinar don't need any help from us to come up with product for the Chinese market. You have been innovating for years, and you're very well advanced in terms of how you have adapted and presented your offer to the Chinese market, both individuals, groups, and to the various intermediaries working with that market. So I suppose some of my remarks will also be addressed to those who perhaps are looking to increase their exposure to the Chinese market. Maybe you are working through some of the marketing opportunities with your neighbors to see, can we get together so collectively we can be appealing for this market? Because one of the things to remember is that if people are coming from China to visit us in Europe, it's highly unlikely they are visiting just one country. Certainly the pattern to date has been more like 3. Now, maybe that will change, and it's going to be interesting to see whether China outbound becomes a slightly slower form of tourism in consequence to the change in consumer sentiment arising from COVID-19. That itself will be an interesting development. So I've given you 4 bullets to consider, and I'll just elaborate a little more on each. Just excuse me while I stop the cough happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first point to make is that we really cannot overemphasize the importance of welcome and reassurance. Now, obviously, part of that reassurance today is to do with the Clean and Safe campaigns, all the various initiatives that people have taken across Europe to reassure potential visitors that their safety is top of the list, that people have good protocols in place to make hotels safe, to organize the breakfast in a sensible way, to ensure that the contact between people is managed intelligently. So Europe has done a lot on that, but as destinations, your ability to reassure origin markets through smart messaging and working with your supply chain to give a consistent and coordinated message, there is a big opportunity there to achieve a level of reassurance, which in turn will lead to consumer confidence. The second point is a more sort of cultural point to begin with, but it has a practical consequence. I certainly over the last 20 odd years, as I've been talking to people in respect of China to European tourism, the type of tourism that comes from China has developed beyond all recognition, and EuroPass is definitely at the forefront of enabling some of that innovation and market penetration. But you know, anyone who thinks they know what Chinese tourism is but has not really done a lot of it recently, I'd invite you to be very open-minded, because the Chinese market is very diverse, and I think the clusters and the different thematic opportunities you're invited to participate in this project really illustrate the breadth of interest that we're seeing from the Chinese market. So any preconceived ideas you have of this is what Chinese tourism is, forget them, open your mind. It is much more interesting and diverse than perhaps some prejudices might have allowed you to think. But as I say, many DMOs on this webinar will be at the forefront of innovation, and innovation is really about making the most of what you have. So just to take the very lazy example, It's interesting, for example, perhaps for Chinese visitors to see how porcelain, which was essentially taken from Asia, brought to Europe, but became very much part of European manufacturing culture hundreds of years ago. These sorts of little cultural links that there may be, any opportunity to recognize what is valued by your visitors goes a very long way. And some of that's practical. Everyone knows about the fact that Chinese visitors do like to be able to make tea, so please do provide hot water. But innovation is really about making the most of what you have that's tailored to demand in this context. Multi-center product and smart collaboration goes back to the point I made earlier. It's unlikely that visitors from China are going to focus just on 1 or 2 centers. They are going to visit more than that. Whether or not, as I said earlier, the pace will get slower, I think is an open question. And in a way, it's the destinations of Europe who may influence that, because if you provide a different narrative, a different type of experience rather than top 10 highlights, it may be that you will achieve the success which has been elusive for the last 5 to 10 years, where it's very likely that people who are first-time visitors of Europe from whichever market will visit the top cities. That's very natural, they're famous. There is an opportunity to align what product offer you have at your destination, whether it's at a local or a national level, rural or otherwise, to changing consumer sentiment in the Chinese market. It's not all about the most famous places. And we know already from talking to EuroPass as to who has applied to participate in this project, these are quite often smaller cities with a very strong local identity who do have an interesting offer, both in terms of food and scenery, lots of blue sky. And I think there's a big opportunity for the less famous cities, destinations in Europe to take a real lead here. But the collaboration means cross-border. So, for example, I know that we've got some considerable interest from friends in Spain and Portugal with this project. It's very clear to us in our work that, for example, if you're in Alentejo or the center of Portugal, you're interested in collaborating with Castile and Leon across the border in Spain, or in Galicia or Andalusia. These are great combinations which are going to need some creative collaboration across national borders and certainly across regional borders in order to present a product that's interesting. Last point, very quickly, think B2B and B2C. Now, the primary focus of this project is the FIT market, and there's no doubt that that is where the growth has been. But don't forget the groups, because they do have their own dynamic, and groups do sort of leverage their own internal marketing dynamic. So if you're a trusted group organizer, then you can bring people to places which perhaps they would not independently have thought of going to. So groups business and FIT blur into each other. You get large family groups, you get groups of 10, 12, 15. They're not all groups of 40, 45. Get creative. It's a very fluid market out there. It's not just a binary choice, big groups or FIT. There is a lot in between. And when I'm thinking about B2B, it's really putting yourselves in the shoes of someone who is selling on the Chinese market. If you want to attract Chinese business, you've got to work out how they do the selling. You've got to talk to them to see what's important, what message do you need, how can I help you look good in that origin market by providing a product that hits the things that consumers are now looking for. So success looks like making your B2B colleagues have an easy time because they've got a product that very easily fits into what they're trying to achieve in the outbound market. The B2C market is very different, and the extraordinary campaign you're going to hear about, the key opinion leaders and so forth, very, very extensive and dynamic online campaign that is envisaged here is going to be extraordinary. But I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the travel trade that's sitting in Asia looking at this is going to respond. And there's a very big opportunity for you in destinations to connect with them. And part of our role is to help you do that. Thibault, I think that's probably enough from me. I'm very happy to be involved in the discussion later. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you, Tim. And we will continue immediately with the presentation of this campaign, Wanderlust to Wander Europe. So just to give you an overview of the context, so this campaign is currently 100% dedicated to DMOs and to destination management organizations. What is important to underline, and as Tim said before, the size of the DMO does not matter. You can apply even if you are not well known on the Chinese market currently. What is important in this campaign is your strategy toward the Chinese market, and this is what we will evaluate to select the 20 destinations that we will be able to join this campaign. Of course, EuroPass, ETC, ETOA will support you to prepare your application at first, and then, of course, to implement this wonderful campaign. As Tim said before, indeed, it's a pan-European campaign, and our aim is to create a link between all the 20 destinations that we are well on board on this project, and to, of course, defend the reputation of European destination at a global level, but also to promote the 20 destinations that we will select. Now I will give the floor to Anna that will present you this campaign in details. Anna?
Yes. Thank you, Tim and Nicolas. So I would quickly like to name you the key points of this pan-European promotional campaign. So together with the European Travel Commission, we will select 20 destinations. And as Nicolas mentioned to you before, we will announce the selected destinations the 20th of July. And because this is a global communication campaign across Europe, we divided it into two parts. So first we have a digital campaign, and secondly a KOL campaign. And we are aware of the current travel situation, and we know it's really not easy to travel from China to Europe and vice versa. So that is the reason also why we are trying to aim Chinese travelers at the beginning of the travel cycle. So the main objective of the digital marketing campaign is help shape future travel plans to Europe through inspirational content. Then we have the KOL campaign at the second part, because people like authenticity. So Chinese travelers also really like to have some travel recommendations from people that really have been to these places before. And we believe that KOLs will be really the ones reassuring Chinese FITs that Europe is a safe travel destination by sharing the experiences to their audience of the destinations. So our brand message of this campaign is a cordial invitation to Chinese travelers that we are aiming to convert into sales. And for this, we will use innovative tools from the Chinese digital ecosystem, like WeChat mini programs for ticketing and booking. And also, of course, we are adapting the storyboard according to the strategy of each destination. So I'm going to the next slide, Nicolas. So why is the Chinese market so important? First of all, it's the first outbound travel market according to the UNWTO. And according to the latest ETC long-haul travel barometer, Chinese travelers are the most resilient. So also, why is a recovery plan for the Chinese market so important on a European level? As Tim mentioned before, Chinese see Europe as one destination, so they not only come to visit one European country, they travel to several countries. So in this unprecedented crisis, it's really important to send out a unified message to Chinese travelers that Europe is a safe travel destination. Because once the crisis is resolved, there will be competition from other long-haul destinations that will like to attract Chinese travelers back again. So how are we going to implement this campaign? For the communication, we will use different Chinese social media channels from the European Travel Commission, like WeChat, Weibo, Douyin, and Mafango, because some of these channels are really used for travel inspiration also. And if destinations already have their own Chinese social networks, they're also free to repost the messages on their accounts. So we will also like to integrate private partners into this campaign to boost the visibility, because we then also can repost on their Chinese social networks. We would especially like to integrate airlines, but also railway, because right now it's really the time to promote a more sustainable way of traveling in Europe. Also, we know that interactive elements are really important to a Chinese audience, so we will also organize contest games and prize draws on a frequent level. So now I go to the cluster part. So the campaign is targeted towards free independent travelers who have an interest in nature and outdoors and creative industries. And in order to ease the communication about 20 destinations, we are organizing the destinations into 5 clusters that reflect these main themes. So we have gastronomy, slow adventure, unexpected experiences, local handcraft, and wellness. This also really makes sense for the KOLs, because we will split them in 5 teams, meaning that we have 2 KOLs visiting 4 destinations, so 1 cluster. And at the end of the campaign, we will do a competition between these KOLs and the clusters, and 1 cluster will win. So this will really increase the audience of the campaign, because then the KOLs, the influencers, are even more motivated to really interact with their audience and to post even more. And also our aim is not to have just 1 destination winning, but really 1 European experience. And also during the application process, you are more than welcome to indicate several clusters, and ETOA will also be there to help you adapt your offer for this campaign. So I'll let Thibault explain you more about the timeline.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this presentation. And yes, so I will go into details on the scheduling of the campaign. So the first part is actually taking place right now, which is the application running. So we've sent out to all of you a PowerPoint and an email with a link enabling you to apply. It's only a Google form, so easy to go to. So until the 10th of July, you're able to apply. After the 10th of July, until the 20th of July, we'll have the selection process, which will be handled by ETC, who has the final cut about this overall selection. So it's important to just mention here that again, the size, as mentioned by Nicolas, of the DMOs applying are not at all taken as a discrimination factor. So whatever the size is, we're happy to have your application, and we'll study it carefully. So going next, from July to August, we'll go with all the 20 selected destinations and write down a storyboard and collect your promotional, tools, but promotional materials too. And we'll define the strategy, as mentioned also by Anna. ETOA will be there to help you through if you need any further information building your own strategy, but also EuroPass will naturally also assist you through the process, because we'll have project manager close to you during this phase. So you'll be assisted. After that, start the first phase of the campaign on September. So this first phase is aiming at publishing, the recovery plan printing it into a Chinese mind, and explaining that all those destinations in Europe are happy to welcome them back on the continent, and also to reassure them first on the sanitary conditions. So what are the measures taken by the different destinations to secure them once they arrive on the territory? But second, also that discrimination. There's no discrimination going on in different countries or destinations towards them, because can be a fear about that. So during this phase, we'll use with you in collaboration direct with all the destinations selected, perhaps either locals, Chinese locals that are happy to communicate with the destination, so it reassures at best the tourists on their ability to come back. Second phase, which will be starting on January, will be the KPIs campaign. So the one mentioned by Anna. So 2 KPIs will be visiting each clusters, and per cluster you will have 4 destinations. So for 2 days, each of those 2 KPIs teams will come on site to see you and just to go and discover you the attractions you would have selected. As this will be a big moment because you will have a major focus on your destination specifically here. That's why we need to prepare it carefully on July and August. And after, though mentioned also by Nicolas, it's not just about branding, it's branding and conversion into sales. So we'll have tools, but I will come back to it later, just right after. This campaign will then flow until March 2021, and will monitor, EuroPass will monitor the results until 2022 for 1 year. So we will supply KPIs and accurate data to you, and you will measure the efficiency of the campaign. Can we put the next slide, please? Nicolas, yeah, thank you. So now speaking about the value, so what it's requested per destinations is an investment of 10,000 euros. And thanks to this exceptional condition, we had the opportunity with the European Travel Commission to add an extra 10,000 euros. So the contribution is pushing it to 20,000 euros. And thanks to what Anna was saying, we have big mutualization opportunities between the destinations as an overall, and also private partners that will come, airlines, railway, also with a cooperation with Europe, which will be, technical partner that will be able to, that will supply to us the ability to have train ticketing bookings during the campaign. All of the partners included here will give us the opportunity to have an extra value of 50,000 euros. So for an investment which is very contained, you reach an opportunity of a value which is much higher in terms of delivery. Something I need to underline here because it's important is the conditions expected by ETC is to start the campaign with a payment before the launch. So for them to be able to finalize the selection of the candidate, the applicant, the payment will have to be achieved after the selection, right after. Yes. Okay, in terms of KPIs here, the 500 million pages views on Chinese social networks will be achieved both on your social networks, on ETC social networks, on the dedicated tools that we'll design specifically for the campaign, and also with the private partners. We'll have a dispositive which will be unprecedented. So these data are commitments. So we're committed to ETC to deliver that. So this is achieved, and back in the past we proved that it's achievable. Also, the interactions on the social networks, meaning the interactions directly with the tourists and the online tourists, will be 1,500,000. It's linked directly to the previous number, and it's 1.5%. We can go. This is the first commitment. We can go naturally further than that, and the levers we'll use is naturally, as mentioned by Anna, the KOLs. Something I think we not mentioned yet is there will be 2 teams of 10, so 10 KOLs, the 2 teams of 5 teams of 2 KOLs, but also a superstar KOL that will run the full campaign as basically a TV show. This will animate it, and this will reinforce and leverage to an even higher level the reach of each publication. So this is the first stage. The social networks I mentioned on Mafengbo, Douyin, Weibo, WeChat, and so on, that will develop specifically here. Also ads on the different social network and several medias, other medias. The platforms, I've just mentioned them, you can read them, and the type of contents will be, the one that are working the best, videos, specifically on Douyin, for example, live, also articles. H5 is specific animated motion tool, posts, and I think the live video is really a great opportunity too. Categories, so 3 level on the overall so the global is the overall project with dedicated tools for the campaign on a per cluster basis, and also specifically onto you, because the goal is to trigger a huge amount of views and focus on your destinations. And also 50 million euros generated as a turnover is what we expect, because we'll specifically have innovative tools within the Chinese digital ecosystem to measure accurately the sales and the bookings. So the first stage is the hospitality booking platform. So the nights in hotels on Europe, an instant ticketing platform for tourist attractions. This is called the WeChat Travel Experience. This is already deployed in several countries in Europe. And approved to be working, developed by EuroPass. The transportation ticketing platform. So this is a partnership with Rail Europe, enabling us to measure and to price the number of bookings and trains, because this is obviously linking the destinations with each other. And a duty-free platform enabling us to measure the retail outputs. So the key technology is the WeChat mini programs for that. Okay, here is just a summary of what we expect that the destinations who are willing to work in China can have the needs that we can fulfill through the campaign. And I won't go through all of the different points, because I've already run through. It's just a summary of it. But if I have to just remind you something, is obviously due to the exceptional circumstances we're all living, we have this chance to build all together collectively a campaign with a very high value and an investment which is not so high, thanks to the ETC initiative. So that's the key word, I guess, here. And here is your project team. So Nicolas will be the project director for EuroPass. Yamin Saadi from ETOA will be the person in charge of delivering accurate information and helping you building your own strategy should you have any questions on it, on any request on help on working on this market, you can address to him directly. Anna will be in charge of supervising all the implementation in terms of content production and strategy, marketing strategy. I will be your business contact and will help you on the implementation of the campaign. So don't hesitate to contact any of us too. Xiao is a senior manager dedicated to digital solution implementation on the engineering side. So she is one of our great assets to deliver the project. Tian is a marketing manager, also senior at EuroPass, and Cynthia Young will be also working closely with all of you on the marketing side. Okay.
So this is it about this recovery plan dedicated to Chinese outbound tourism market. Do not hesitate, if you have a question, to ask directly, to write it directly on the platform, and we will select several questions. Maybe Thibault, there is a question from Stéphane Langevin.
Okay, Stéphane. I cannot. Sorry, I cannot see it through. Do you mind? Can see one. Bonjour à tous. Is the question because I cannot? Oh, wait, sorry.
Okay, is it asking about more detail about this presentation for sure? And once again, we introduce to you all the contacts. So do not hesitate to come back to us if you need more details about the financial condition, about the KOL campaign, etc., etc. For sure, we will give you all details. What is important to underline is that you have to the 10th of July to apply. So come back to us quite quickly to obtain all the information. Once again, the application process is really easy. You have only one link with one document to file to do your application. So before to do so, do not hesitate to come back to us if you have any question. For sure, we will be pleased to respond to you.
And Stefan, I will send it out to you, but normally you have it online, but I will deliver it.
Okay, is there?
I saw another question, Nicolas, about whether or not you will be able to share this presentation itself, because there's a lot of useful information in it.
Yeah, for sure. Any other question? Or were we clear enough?
Sometimes I can just see a question that mentions me, if I can
yeah, for sure.
interrupt. So Marco Castellana has asked us, can we advise with regards to group travel and how the rules and regulations will, as far as drivers and coaches, develop amount of packs per coach, etc. So this isn't particularly around the Chinese market, but it's obviously highly relevant for everyone who is working with tourism. The short answer is that all of those things are a national competence, Marco. So it is for each Ministry of Transport to come to an agreement. From ETOA's perspective, along with partners, we are pushing very hard to make sure that the private coaching industry is not treated in a way that's more harsh or negative than the public or city buses. So if it's the case that the members of the public are allowed to use city buses, perhaps wearing a mask, then it should certainly not be the case that private coaches are more restrictive in terms of load factor. So for now, I think we're still wait and see, but certainly if you're looking at long haul markets where people will be in an aircraft for several hours, it makes no sense to require people to be more physically distant when they get to Europe than they have been in the aircraft coming over. So we think that common sense will prevail, but it will take a few more weeks before this becomes clear.
Okay.
I think there's another question here about a specific cluster, the category slow adventure, and the question is, would the ski resorts be good fit for the campaign in this category? So the answer is yes. There are already interest from ski resorts or regions in Europe that are interested into the theme, and yes, obviously the KOL campaign will take place at the right period for that. So we're happy to have your application on this specific theme.
There is a question about ETOA membership. ETOA membership is not a requirement to apply for this campaign. For sure, ETOA is one of the strong partner of this campaign, but there is no membership condition to apply, and you don't need to be a partner of EuroPass, ETOA, or whatever to apply, just to be a European destination.
If one destination can apply for 2 clusters and chance to be in both clusters. No, all of the destinations that will be applying can apply for several clusters. If you have, an offer that is matching different clusters, but in the end, only one cluster will be, the destination will be attributed to only one cluster. It's a matter of organization.
There is a question, can we share the link to apply? Yeah, for sure. Maybe Anna, you can respond to all with the link to apply. And once again, we will send you this presentation and which include the link to apply. Another question about the health crisis situation and how we will react. So as you see in this campaign, we anticipate this health crisis. We take care of the health crisis, and we welcome Chinese KOL only in January. So we still have 6 months to study the evolution of the situation, and for sure we already anticipate a potential plan B if the airlines are still locked at this time. So we will cooperate with Chinese KOL, but potentially living overseas outside China if there is still no airlines available. Thibault, there is a question about is there any application form or we make our own style bidding file? Maybe you can take this one.
Yes, sorry, I cannot identify the question. Can you just repeat it to me and I will answer straight?
Yeah, is there any application form or we make our own style bidding file?
Okay, no. Obviously, there's an application form. So it's comprehended in the first slide. I mean, the link is comprehended. It's on Google. Sorry, a Google form that has approximately 20 questions. So the idea here is you are restrained in terms of information so that it's not complicated for you to deliver the content. But if you would like to add some more information because you don't have enough places, you can obviously send a message, an email to me or to Anna, so that we will study the new elements you want to supply. But it's not at all an obligation. And again, the criteria of selection will not be based on previous action realized on the Chinese market. It's only focused on the consistency of what you want to achieve on the Chinese market. If what you have achieved in the past can just go well with the next step of your strategy, obviously you can mention it and we'll be happy to consider it. But it's not at all a discriminating factor. And here is a link. Yeah, it's applied before July 10th, 12 a.m. And the form is, the link is here. So we'll share naturally the presentation right after the meeting, the conference.
There is several of you are asking us to share some slide, but we will send you the whole presentation just after the webinar. So don't be afraid, you will have all the content very soon to study it in details.
Shall I respond to the question about visas from Marco? Would that be useful? So again, Marco is asking about China visa outbound after the recent changes in the last 2 years. Will the Chinese government help with these destinations as far as these ease of visa application? Most of the destinations that we're addressing will be within the 26 countries of Schengen, but obviously some will be outside that as well. But as far as Schengen goes, there is something called the ADS agreement in place between China and the EU, approved destination status, and there's quite a well-established reciprocity there. And there has been a lot of work done to try to improve the front end in China and to minimize the variation between the various Schengen states consulates in China, though we know that still is a problem. So people will ask the consulate of the same country in Guangzhou or Beijing and get a different answer. So we are working hard with partners to try and illustrate some of those variations in order that from the point of view of the Chinese citizen, the European visa apparatus comes across as respectful and friendly and efficient. We are concerned that there still is a little bit too much perception that it's capricious, but we think there's been very significant improvements, ADS particularly adapted around group travel, but I think we'll continue to see efforts there. And for countries which are outside Schengen, such as the UK, there's been a lot of investment to improve direct consumer application as well.
Just another point, we know that there is some non-DMOs represented in this webinar. Just to remind you, as Thibault said, we will also onboard private partner and non-DMOs partner in the second wave of preparation in this campaign. Do not hesitate to contact Thibault to study how we can potentially integrate you in this campaign and cooperate together if you want to be on board. Thibault, there is another question for you, I think. Is this program covering the whole country or a part of a specific area of a country, for example, whole Spain or Barcelona area? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas, for the question, and thank you for this question. It's actually a very good question in regard to the organization of the campaign. The destination that are able to apply, so the DMOs, can be any type of them. I mentioned it could be an NTO, National Tourism Board. That will be the case for some. This could be a regional tourism board. Could be also a department size tourism board. Could be also a city itself. There's no discrimination, so we're happy to welcome any applicants that are actually fitting to the DMO definition. And this again, the size of the DMO, it's not because it's a region that will be considered more fitting than a city. So it's really what you have to offer, what you want to achieve, that will be taken in consideration.
Okay, there is another question about partnership. Is WeChat partnering into this campaign or supporting, facilitating it in any way? To be clear, there is no exclusivity with any Chinese platform. We will cooperate with several of them. So WeChat and Tencent, Sina Weibo, TikTok and Douyin. So for sure, EuroPass cooperate with them daily. So we quite well know them, and we have a lot of potential to cooperate with very specific packages with them. But the point is that, once again, no exclusivity. For sure, they will help us. They have interest, for sure, to promote this campaign, but no exclusivity, not only in WeChat, but on all the platforms pertinent for this campaign. Anna, Thibault, do you have something else to add? Our team, for sure. Also.
I'm just reflecting on one of the questions. I think Simon is from Switzerland Tourism and asked a very good question earlier about, I think we mentioned it briefly, that slow adventure in the way we're imagining it is mountains, lakes, islands, seaside, coastline, and European gardens. Now, if the key opinion leaders are coming in the winter, then that's great for alpine views and so on. That's not the natural time to visit the beach. Maybe in parts of Southern Europe, there's still going to be some sunshine and people are outside. But my understanding is that this is really an opportunity for DMOs that have a lot of rural product, a lot of nature product generally. So don't be confined by the label slow adventure as such. It's really about the natural heritage and assets you have, and what sort of programs and abilities to enjoy that you have. Just talking to colleagues in Centre of Portugal just last week, there's investment going on in cycle paths and so on, and you might think, really, is that what's going to attract people? But there's lots of intelligent investment that is both good for visitors and for the local community, and there may well be things that you have that the Chinese visitor will very much enjoy doing away from the cities. So I would treat that slow adventure as an opportunity to explore what you have away from the big cities.
Thank you, Tim. There is another question about the cost. With the fee of 10k euro, will be covered cost of QL's hospitality as well. Thibault, maybe you want to answer?
Yeah, definitely. So this campaign has been designed to be all included, so there's no extra cost. But it's important to mention that obviously we, with this contained cost, we couldn't supply 5-star hotel for each of them, each of the KOLs per destination. So if you're willing to increase, to the higher level that you can expect, the conditions of KOLs welcoming, naturally we'll be happy to have your help. But all the costs are already into it, comprehended in the 10,000 euros.
Yeah. And once again, we will negotiate and cooperate, and we do it currently for all the campaign we manage for European DMOs. We will cooperate with hospitality groups, and if they welcome our KOLs, they will benefit of visibility in this campaign. So it's a win-win partnership that works quite well, especially in low season.
Perhaps just to mention, because there was something mentioned at the beginning by Nicolas, but yeah, the flow dispersion is really important per destination. So again, it's not because the destination that is applying is not yet famous in China that it doesn't have an interest. So we will design the full campaign for the destination in order to make it, let's say, easy for accessible, and just will run the itinerary in a relevant manner and illustrate, from one destination to another, how can we can reach yours. So you will not feel alone. You'll be assisted. The building of strategy all along the campaign will be taken in charge with you. So no worries with this point.
Okay.
Nicolas, can I just one reflection, which is not really related to those questions, but I think I've read somewhere in the campaign that you're going to be working with, clearly there are many Chinese in Europe, and you'll be working with members of China's diplomatic team in Europe to address their compatriots. But it seems to me that for DMOs that there will be many people in your community who are Chinese. They could be students, they could be people who run businesses. And I think that there is an opportunity to really share, use those voices to build a bridge between Europe and China. And certainly in current circumstances, the very desirable idea that there is this reciprocity and this mutual interest in that people from Europe go to China and study and learn and work, and people from China come to Europe and do likewise. I think one of the sort of cultural values of this entire project is to foster that mutual curiosity, and some of the most articulate voices about that will be the Chinese who are in Europe. So I would advise DMOs to be creative about how they can connect with that network in their territory and see whether there's an interesting message they can derive from that.
Okay.
There is another.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That could be part of the. I was just saying that thanks to what Tim just mentioned, during the preparation phase in July and August, we'll be happy to review what assets and what, locals, Chinese local that you can have in your network on your destination, that we can work with them closely. There will be good ambassadors for the campaign and for your territory.
There is another question. Is it possible to know who else has expressed an interest in this webinar, especially by country, as may be possible to partner and share costs, but we don't know who else has expressed an interest? And there is a beginning of response to this question with the message from Simon, who tell us, thanks to everybody for this initiative. You're welcome, Simon. We will get coordinated within Switzerland and try to be prominently in. I will have to run for another meeting. Happy weekend, guys. Happy weekend to you also, Simon. Yes, Hélène, for the countries who express an interest in this campaign, there is several. For example, Atout France in France also partner in this campaign and is preparing the French destination response and application for this campaign. We know that also several National Tourism Board exchange with ETC and ETOA. I have in mind Ireland, Portugal, Nordics country also are coordinating themselves. So if you want to just to precise who else you can onboard potentially, and we will be able to give you a specifically thank you for the precision. Specifically, is Visit Britain involved? We know that they joined the webinar normally, so do not hesitate to. We will give you the contact of Gordon Brown, who is the UK director for EuroPass, that will give you all the information about Visit Britain and if they are involved or not. I know Gordon quite. That is great. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, sounds good. Did you already get any application? Yeah, we already obtained several applications from 4 different countries. What is sure is that we will obtain more application than we have places availability. Thanks, Thibault. How many of them do you expect? We do think that between 100 and 200 destinations will apply for this campaign. The point is that it will also give us argument to potentially redesign and to reorganize this campaign, to study how we could potentially onboard more destinations. The point is that onboard candidate apply for this campaign, and then we will try to, of course, we will focus, and ETC will select the most relevant application, but also we will work with all the application destination to find them solution if they are not selected in this first part. Sorry, I have to drop off. Okay, no problem, Hélène. If there is no more question, maybe we can stop here. Nothing to add, Tim, Anna, Thibault, is it okay for you?
It's okay.
Nothing to add, thank you. And I look forward to all the various conversations. I think, whether or not people are finally selected, I think this is a great catalyst for some creative thought at destination level. And we're really looking forward to working with people just to get that public-private collaboration going as we all want it to, and as is really necessary during the recovery. So thanks again for the opportunity to get involved, guys.
Thank you very much.
It was a great pleasure. So thanks all, and we'll keep in touch and remain at your disposal for any question. Bye-bye. Yeah. Have a good day.
Good day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye all.